Welcome to the Make School Great Again podcast. I'm your host, Kay O'Neill, founder and CEO of the Transformation Network. This season is called Changemakers, and we're inviting leaders who are reshaping education, transforming family culture, building purpose-driven businesses, and helping people live with clarity, freedom, and legacy. And today's guest has dedicated nearly 30 years to helping individuals, students, and organizations discover who they are and why they're here. She's an expert in spiritual and personal development, an alignment specialist, student life strategist, company culture expert, and founder of the Purpose Company. Cara, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Kale. It's good to be here.
Absolutely. I thought we'd start with, this is off script, of course. You and my wife go way back.
Way back. My gosh.
And that's how I originally became aware of who you are and what you do. And I was chatting to my wife earlier and she was saying, I said, when did you first connect with Cara? And she was like, I think it was like over 10 years ago.
At least, easily. Yeah.
Yeah. And she said it was at a season in her life where what you're doing now, I mean, you were doing that then, but helped her immensely. And so she was like, when I was, starting the Transformation Network, she said, reach out to Cara. Maybe there's something there that you guys can collaborate on. And we have, which has been awesome. But I'm thrilled to have you in this capacity to just hear more about that and how it all began. So for those meeting you for the first time, what's the heartbeat behind the Purpose Company? Or maybe you can give us a little bit of where it started. Maybe that was when you were quite young.
Yeah, quite young. Well, look, it came out of a very unexpected journey for me, actually. I landed in doing purpose consulting related type things very accidentally, it felt like. And that was really the conception of it. Was I'd come out of, and this is just the snapshot version of the story, otherwise we'll be here forever. Come out of a career of high school teaching, felt I needed to change out of that for various reasons, and went into full-time ministry and was in that for several years. And then during that period, I actually discovered what my purpose in life was. And it was not something I was necessarily searching for, but I was probably in a stage of my life where I was trying to make all the pieces of my life make sense.
Mm-hmm.
Because while they felt like they were right and what I was meant to be doing, for some reason they felt a little bit disconnected from each other. And in that moment, I had a very, very clear encounter with God, and he downloaded to me basically what my purpose in life was. And then from there, this process began to unravel in conversations with people. And I started asking them questions that honestly just didn't feel like they were necessarily coming from me, but I was asking them anyway. And so at the end of these conversations I would have with people, they too then walked away with a sense of clarity around what their purpose in life was. And honestly, I was just as shocked as they were. Like really, that we just kept landing on it time and time and time again. And after a while, word of mouth, it gets around and people are knocking on my door like, hey, I heard you do this thing where you help people find their purpose. Do you think you could help me? And so on and so forth. And then that grew and grew and grew. And obviously I was still in ministry at that time. So there was already a community at my door, essentially, that were asking me these questions. But it actually went beyond that. It went outside the walls of the church, and it went into businesses. It went into just friends of friends. And so I thought, I need to create something that gives me a platform to be able to help anybody that actually asks me, not just people within my own church community. And that is the point where the Purpose Company began. So I could essentially not be limited in who I helped and how I helped them, whether it was personally, just in their own life, or whether it was in a business they ran or in a school even. And also, even up to today, that demographic that I help, it spreads right from school age kids all the way up to my oldest client I've ever helped was 75 years old, and
Right.
everything in between. So it's actually been one of my greatest challenges is actually landing on a niche, right? Because purpose is such a human equalizer, right? Everybody has it. Everybody needs to live from it. And so there's really not been anybody that I could turn away or say no to who's been asking me these questions. So that's just a very, in a nutshell, kind of backstory on how the Purpose Company came about. But
Yeah.
it's certainly grown into more than I probably thought it would. Absolutely.
Yes. When I first was trying to make sense of what you do through my wife, just having conversations, myself and others might think it's like if she's in the school, maybe that's like the careers advisor,
Right.
For those that grew up in Australia, that's sort of the role that I remember as a kid. It's sort of like there was that office that you go and that person asks you those questions like,
Yeah.
do you want to go to university? What do you want to do? And I remember just feeling like this is so awkward and not kingdom aligned, like it's just pretty brutal.
Yeah.
But then when I found out what you were doing and how it aligns just with a kingdom mindset with we are created by an all-powerful God who's given us all purpose and has a plan for us. And so at the heart of what you do is helping others, and what I came to learn, helping others understand what that calling is God has for them. Not necessarily what do I want to do? It's, well, how do I understand what God has for me? Which is the flip, right? It's just like the secular version versus the Christian understanding version.
That's right. Yeah.
And I guess that probably ties into this word alignment. First thing I think of like getting my back aligned. But what does it mean to you personally in your space? Alignment.
Well, that example you just used about getting your back aligned, you go into the chiropractor, look, I've got something's just not right here. Can you just straighten me out? That's actually not that far off.
Okay.
Because, if you do have a sore back or, there's maybe you've got a slip disc or your neck's just off or whatever, it's only one spot in your body that might feel like something's off. But if that's ever happened to you, you'll notice that your whole body feels the effects of that one thing being out of alignment, right? And it's very difficult to kind of go about your day-to-day life with your fullest capacity when you're carrying around this misalignment in your body somewhere. And so I like to take that concept into what I'm doing because I see so many people who have misalignment just in their life in general. And a lot of the times the source of that is that they're not living out of their purpose, right? So when you get that bit right, when you are actually living from a place of purpose, everything else comes into alignment. Like you just imagine, you're working a full-time job that you actually don't enjoy. You're just in it just because you got a mortgage or, bills to pay, and you're just like, oh, I just clock on, I clock off, I come home or whatever. When you consider how many hours of your day you spend in that environment that you're not enjoying, and then you come home, and that actually has a flow-on effect into all the other areas of your life. Now, that's not to say that purpose is purely about your career, because it's absolutely not. That's not something that I'm preaching, but it certainly is an area where it can be played out, okay? But that principle, actually, you can translate that into just about every area of your life, because your purpose is, it's not limited to just this one box or this one category of my life over here, and then everything else in my life lacks purpose. Like that, how could that be sustainable, right? Because you'd forever be wanting to be somewhere else. Like if you're really purpose driven at work but not at home, then you're never going to want to come home. And if you're just really purpose driven in your home but not at work, you never want to go to work, and vice versa. So it actually touches all areas work, home, family, friendships, your church community, your neighborhood, the street you live in, like the grocery store that you
Mm.
shop at. Like it touches every single area because purpose is so innate. It's so connected to your wiring in the way that God's created you. So it's something you carry everywhere you go. Wherever
Mm.
you go, your purpose goes.
Mm. Mm.
If that makes sense. Coming back to your question about alignment and how does that work? Well, if your purpose is out of alignment, we're not actually able to affect all of those different areas of our life in the way that we're designed to. And
Yeah.
then we lack that sense of fulfillment. And if you live in that space long enough, you end up feeling really discontent with your life, and in really extreme cases might, suffer from things like depression or whatever, which I have helped people with that as well.
Mm-hmm.
So alignment is really important. Absolutely.
That you've explained that beautifully, and that makes a lot of sense. I think there's a bit of a theme that when we speak to other guests and we're talking about the importance of having, your worldview is one room. You shouldn't have compartments where you sort of
Yeah.
behave or act a certain way here, and then you do this over here. I think people are learning and discovering that what it means to, develop who you are as a person in all spheres of life. Switching gears a little bit, when you look at this generation, which there's a lot we can say about this generation, what do you see as the biggest contributors to a loss of purpose?
Technology. If we
Mm-hmm.
can start there. Look, that's not to say that I don't appreciate technology, because we wouldn't be able to have this conversation right now without it, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
but what I've found with this generation, however long that span is that you want to identify, is they're dopamine addicts,
Mm.
really. And we're finding that sense of satisfaction from all the wrong places, right? And I see this a lot with kids that might have a device in their hand most hours of the day, or really big gamers, or whatever whatever source they're getting these dopamine hits from that are really unhealthy. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
it's fulfilling that sense of fulfillment and satisfaction, even though it's coming from an unhealthy source. And so if
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting that need met through
Mm-hmm.
those avenues, I don't
Mm-hmm.
need to search for it in all of the other ways that are actually really healthy, like purpose,
Mm-hmm.
or becoming a really value adding citizen to my society or to my family, which they're the sources of. You still get dopamine from those things, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
the same hormone that's hitting your brain, but it's coming from a much longer lasting source, so to speak. When you just
Mm-hmm.
getting it from this phone or this game or whatever, it's just instant gratification, but then it actually subsides really fast, which is why we keep
Mm-hmm.
coming back to it for more. But
Mm-hmm.
when you go down the street and you mow your neighbor's lawn for free
Mm-hmm.
because she's an old lady and she can't do it by herself,
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
still get that hit of dopamine, but that actually might last you days, if not weeks,
Mm-hmm.
compared to these short bursts that we tend to go to. And that's kind of why I'm just hitting on technology first, is because that is where kids are getting it most often,
Yes.
compared to when we're at school.
Mm-hmm.
Those sorts of things weren't as readily available to us. And
Mm-hmm.
so we went searching for that sense of fulfillment, that satisfaction from other things, like, it might have been team sports, or, doing things in our church community and serving, and like just ways that are actually adding value. See, when you just are taking the road of, I just need to be satisfied here, just
Mm-hmm.
kind of feed me, there's no output.
Mm.
And so we end up creating a whole generation of kids that have no idea what adding value actually means,
Mm.
or what that looks like. And so when you bring up that concept to them, they're like, what are you talking about?
Mm.
Right? And I think that is something very, very lacking in that space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like women, we could talk about probably 10 big contributors.
But yeah, we could.
When you were talking, I had this picture in my mind of like, kind of like the nicotine patches, but like
Yeah.
these, if you called them pseudo purpose patches, kids are just putting them on, getting that little hit of purpose, and then it runs out and they got to take it off, and then they got to buy the new pack because it only comes a pack of 30.
Exactly.
And they're just
Exactly
these short
right.
hits,
That's it.
which is almost becoming like a default way that kids are viewing how to feel good, which, I think like if you were going to start out of a list of 10, I think it could be pretty strong argument that that's number one currently.
Absolutely. It's not showing signs of getting better. So, what mum and dad do in the home is really the only counterpunch that we have to this thing.
Mm-hmm.
However, if mum and dad are struggling with the same thing, that might need to be addressed first.
Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah, that's why
just to put it plainly.
Let's shift the focus for parents, because we have a lot of parents that listen to the podcast. What would you say would be the signs parents should look for that their child is struggling with, identity or purpose? What are the things you would say to look out for?
I guess a sense of like disconnect or even hopelessness about the world around them, or even about their relationships that they have. An inability to have conversations that are like face to face and not just kind of staring at a device. Again, I know I'm picking on that thing, but that sense of disconnect with the world and relationships and also the world around them, because the place that purpose comes from is and should come from, if you've identified that it is innately built in there from the Lord, there's the heart of it is to serve. The heart of it is to serve other people, to again add value to other people. That's the place that it comes from. And often parents and even school teachers and other family members might ask that kid, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? Or what do you want to do when you leave school? And, they're the default questions that we go to. And honestly, most kids struggle to answer that question. And there's many reasons why that might be. But what I would encourage parents to ask instead, and full disclosure, I have totally stolen this question from Simon Squibb. He's in the UK, big entrepreneur over there. He said, ask your kids, don't ask them that question about what do you want to do when you leave school. Ask them, what problem do you want to help fix in the world? Like, it's a completely different mindset about how do I want to go into the world as an adult, as a contributing adult in society, is not what job do I want to get, what career do I want to get, whatever, but what problem do I want to help fix? And if they can go down that road of discovery, they're either going to find a career that relates to that, or they may even be entrepreneurial enough to create one themselves, which we know, looking at the stats more recently, is there are so many jobs that our kids right now are going to enter into that don't exist now. So there's so much scope for that. And I think that if kids don't understand that they have those sorts of options, they do carry that sense of hopelessness. Like, well, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know where I want my life to go because there's nothing for me. So I'm just going to kind of stay over here in the corner and, see where the chips fall. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That is not an exciting, hopeful place for anybody to live out of, but it's especially for our kids, because they're the next generation of leaders. That's who we're building into right now. So it's so important for parents to have those conversations as early as possible. Like, don't wait till they're in year 10 or 11 or 12 Start talking with that type of language in primary school. Like, why not? Because
Yeah.
it starts to give them the right mindset and the right framework to go into life with,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes sense. It's not
Mm-hmm.
just
Yeah.
about, oh, you need to do well at school, little Johnny, because of XYZ. It's, hey, what problem can you see in the world that you might like to be part of the answer for? And obviously, the younger they are, frame that language in a way they understand, but it's the same concept that you're building into them as early as possible and all the way through.
And would you say they're questions like, what gets you really excited
Yes.
about things? Like what makes you really upset and angry?
Yes.
I imagine they're the kind of questions you take people through. Would I be right?
They are,
Like,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. And I might not ask it in those terms, but it is more a sense of, well, what are you passionate about? What really gets you fired up? What frustrates you so much that you just want to take action?
Mm-hmm.
Those
Mm-hmm.
sorts of questions, because I firmly believe that we don't get frustrated about things that we don't care about, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that is a signpost. If you care enough about this thing to be upset or angry about it,
Mm-hmm.
perhaps that means you're meant to do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I like to help people explore those ideas, because often people don't realize that that's even an option for them to be part of the answer,
Mm-hmm.
even if it is in a small way. But when
Mm-hmm.
you start living like that, like, I can be part of the answer, I
Mm-hmm.
tell you what, that is one of the biggest purpose driven lifestyles you can ever have.
Mm-hmm.
And the sense of fulfillment you get from that is bigger than any paycheck that you take home every time.
Yeah. And that would be, do you think when that's not happening, that's why we're seeing families and students experiencing so much burnout? Would that be, I guess the reason why you think that's happening or?
Yeah, well, I don't think you experience burnout if you're living purposefully.
Mm.
If you do, it's rare. It's probably just because you're very poor at time management.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're living from a place where you know that you're in your purpose and what you're doing is from that place of purpose, you don't get burnt out, because there's a bigger why behind what you're doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you don't, it's just for the paycheck. It's just to pay the bill. It's just to put food on the table. And I'm not diminishing the importance of those things, because that
Mm-hmm.
has to happen. But if that's all that it's about,
Mm-hmm.
you do end up burning out, because you're not getting any sense of fulfillment in what you're doing either. Um,
What are the biggest needs you're seeing in students today? Because I imagine you're working with them, you've worked with them. What are sort of some common needs that are the biggest needs that keep coming up?
it is a big one, is that lack of direction.
Mm.
And it's a difficult one to navigate, because I find that while kids need direction, they're also so young that they're still discovering what that even looks like. And they don't actually need to have all of the answers to that while they're so young, which is why I do have great issue with even year 11 and 12 students having the pressure of needing to choose a career path
Mm.
at that age,
Mm-hmm.
when their brains aren't even fully developed, right? Because we know, well, maybe we don't all know, but our brain's not fully developed till we're 25. Yet we're asking them at 16, 17 years old, hey, make this really life altering decision, please, and do
Mm-hmm.
it within this time frame. Otherwise, you're going to miss out, or you're going to whatever. There's
Mm-hmm.
just this underlying pressure that is on kids to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that they would probably start making much better decisions around those career paths, or around those things that they might want to study after school, or whatever it might be, if they were doing it from a place of confidence
Mm-hmm.
because all of their preceding years of education have built their purpose, not just their grades.
Mm-hmm.
But we've got it a little bit backwards.
Mm-hmm.
Traditionally,
Mm-hmm.
traditional forms of education, we've got it a little bit backwards where, and I see this in the schools that I go into,
Mm-hmm.
is they don't even have a budget for this. They do not have a budget for purpose-related curriculum. And so they find it difficult to find a place to put that when that should actually be at the heart of.
Why they do what they do.
Exactly. That should be the reason that they're even there turning up, is to help this kid find out who he is
Mm-hmm.
and then build what he's learning around that central point. But at the moment, we see it as a luxury. But that's not just to pick on education. It's actually all over the place. We see purpose as a luxury
Mm-hmm.
when it's actually a necessity. But this is a huge mindset shift that has to take place. And it feels like trying to turn a huge, big ship in the ocean,
Mm-hmm.
right? You want to turn that ship around.
Mm-hmm.
It'll turn, but it's slow.
Yes.
It's not like whipping around a little speedboat on the water.
Yes.
So the lack of direction, to go back to your question, the lack of direction, I think, is probably one of, if not the greatest need I'm seeing in students at the moment.
Mm. Education's one thing. We're talking about if we shift to company culture, retention, you work in that space.
Yeah.
Why does culture collapse so quickly, or can it collapse so quickly inside, I guess if we refer to schools, but organizations as well?
Why does it collapse? I think because particularly in like new companies, new businesses that have a whole lot of, they don't always have to be new, I guess. They portray a certain image.
Mm-hmm.
And it might be, this image might be, we have a really healthy company culture, so come on board, work for us.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to get XYZ perks, and, like they just kind of make it look
Mm-hmm.
amazing. Like this is the place you want to work. But then once you're there, you realize this isn't exactly what I was made to believe that it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a huge issue because there's such a lack of integrity across the board there.
Mm-hmm.
Companies just failing to deliver on their promise of company culture. And so they end up with very disgruntled employees that they ultimately lose, therefore retention issues. So I think the first thing is you got to be honest and upfront about what your company culture actually looks and feels like, and it needs to be accurate for the employee when they are working within it. But also people are more and more and more wanting to pursue careers that are purpose-driven, not paycheck-driven. A lot of times people will actually choose that, particularly the younger generation, actually. So you've got this cohort of like Gen Zs hitting the workforce that are like, I want to do something meaningful. I want to work for a company that does something meaningful, that ticks this purpose box. But all of these companies are run by boomers who have a different mindset about work. And it's not a wrong mindset, it's just a different one. And they're employing these kids that just want to do something meaningful, but they just, the boss just wants them to get the job done, right? And so there's a bit of a collide there. And so you find that Gen Zs can be pretty big job hoppers, I guess you could say. Like, just, I'm going to go from job to job. I'm going to land somewhere. And whilst they could benefit greatly from sticking around a little bit longer, I get why they do it. I do, because they're not as interested in the paycheck now. So a really healthy company culture helps people. They have that balance, right? They don't let the pendulum swing all the way one end and the other. So they have this balance of, we are purpose driven, but we're also here to work, right? And it is achievable. I've seen companies do it, but the retention issues come is when they promise that but don't
Hmm.
fulfill the promise.
Yes. I mean, same things happens in education, right? Schools,
Yes.
you're seeing mass exodus, teachers, a lot of the time. I mean, I don't think the media always paints it as purpose, but I mean, there's conflicts with their beliefs, the ideologies. They're
Yeah.
just like, I can't keep doing this.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and again, it comes back to purpose. Like, what am I doing in this place? Like, it's just not worth it anymore
Yeah.
until they can feel like they have the freedom or the ability to really lean into, faith matters, which we know are getting harder and harder, particularly in
Yes.
Australia's culture.
Yeah.
If we shift to faith formation and how that influences how I guess you work with people that are in that space in a Christian setting and sometimes not,
Mm.
why do you think spiritual formation is essential for genuine transformation? Like, let's just cut to it. Like, why is that the starting point? At least I think. I'm curious to hear what you've got to say on it.
Yeah. Well, like you said, I do work with both sets of people,
Mm-hmm.
believers and non-believers, or I like to call them pre-believers.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and look, it's not impossible for me to help someone who doesn't know God yet in terms of purpose. It still works only because God still created them.
Mm.
And whilst they don't know, a lot of the time they don't know that I know that.
Mm-hmm.
So I can still help them discover through the exact same conversation as I would with a Christian
Mm-hmm.
and and land on the same results, the same answers of
Mm-hmm.
this is what your purpose looks like. Go take this away and run with it. But I love having when I am working with someone who knows the Lord and believes that Jesus is the Son of God, and I'm like, well, guess what? God created you. He's got the manual
Mm-hmm.
for how
Mm-hmm.
you work,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
He's got the instructions. Here we go. So it makes so much more sense to me that you go to the author, you go to the creator of a thing, you go to the maker,
Mm-hmm.
to understand fully what has been created and how it functions,
Mm.
all of the intricacies that he's placed on the inside, our reason, our purpose, the why. God, why did you decide that I was going to be born in 1985
Mm.
and not 1785?
Mm.
Like, let's have that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And we can. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the beauty of it. So you start to understand, like, that verse, you've been born for such a time as this. We love to throw that one out there as like just an encouragement to keep going. But
Mm-hmm.
there's actually so many layers to that
Mm-hmm.
if you dare to unpack it. Like, God just doesn't accidentally just plop people on the earth at any given time and just kind of, like a confetti cannon, bang, here we go, let's just see where they all fall. He's much more intentional than that.
Mm-hmm.
And purpose is fully connected in that conversation. So I think it's actually a lot of fun when you get to help someone unpack that and discover and make sense of what their desires in life are, make sense of their passions, their frustrations, the things that they dream about, the
Mm-hmm.
impact that they want to have on the world. It's like, oh, I understand. Like, God made me this way for this reason and for this purpose. And at this time, like, the pieces are coming together. I'm starting to see
Mm-hmm.
what the picture can look like. So to answer your question, it's like you've got to start with God because he made you, right? And to have that piece missing, well, there's always going to be something wanting. Do you know? There's always going to be, I need a place for all of this to connect to.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the place. It's in him.
Mm-hmm.
It's in God and his son.
Yeah.
So it's essential. It's number one. It's at the
Yeah.
center of everything.
Yeah.
You can't remove him. No.
Yes. And like we say this all the time, and parents are the primary purpose shapers in just that parenting role is so special and important. And I guess for our audience, we have a lot of homeschooling families that, have chosen to homeschool for that reason. Like they just want to have more of that influence. If we look at what that looks like practically, let's say for a family that's, shaping purpose in their child. I mean, you go to a Christian bookstore and how many books there are on hearing God's voice, right? It's like,
Yeah.
and it's because it's a very important topic. How would you encourage them to do that? Like, are you telling or encouraging families to have the kids, learning about the word because that's God's voice? Like, what does that look like from your side?
In terms of hearing God's voice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, obviously the word is huge because that is God's voice. The word of God is God's voice, but also prayer as well.
Uh-huh.
And
Uh-huh.
making a habit as a family to pray and
Uh-huh.
worship and
Uh-huh.
read the word together
Uh-huh.
as a family in your home. Now,
Uh-huh.
I'm saying it out loud as if like that's some kind of wild concept,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
but it shouldn't be. And
Uh-huh.
but if you look at the trend in modern day Christianity, like I'm gonna generalize here, so forgive me, but a lot of Christian families will leave all of those things to the Sunday experience
Yeah.
at church and maybe, maybe a prayer at bedtime or whatever. And that's great. Like that's important and that needs to happen, but it's actually meant to be a daily practice.
Uh-huh.
And unless it becomes a daily practice where your kids actually learn, hey, this is normal.
Uh-huh.
Like actually to not do this is
Uh-huh.
abnormal.
Uh-huh.
And if they're learning that as a child and that's becoming part of their daily life, their normal life, well, they're going to
Uh-huh.
carry that into adulthood, right? Train the
Yeah.
child up in the way they should go.
Yeah.
So that's how kids are going to hear hear the voice of God is
Uh-huh.
through those experiences.
Yes.
And then they're going to start cultivating that experience when they're alone
Uh-huh.
by themselves
Uh-huh.
and hearing the voice of God separate from mum and dad because they'll
Uh-huh.
know that I can have a relationship with God as well. It's not
Uh-huh.
just through mum and dad,
Uh-huh.
but I can do this independently.
Mm.
And my gosh, if they're learning that at a young age, that is just going to set them up for the rest of
Uh-huh.
their life because it
Uh-huh.
really is the most important thing for them to learn ever
Yes.
is developing that relationship with the Lord for themselves and not riding on the history of someone else's relationship with the Lord.
Yeah. So it's this idea of like spiritual formation is just ongoing and needs to be developed from a young age because Jesus says like my sheep know my voice. Well, how do you know his voice? Well, you need to know what he's said
Yeah,
and is saying and
yeah,
is active. The Bible
yeah,
isn't like that history book that used to be alive. It's living.
yeah,
And so when we're plugged into that, we have a healthy prayer life. We're involved in worship. We can, I guess, determine when it's God's voice or something else trying to
yes, that's right.
and so identifying when it might be something that's, not of,
Yeah,
his voice at all, because that's so
right.
increasingly I mean, we're just living in that time where there's just stuff coming at kids
Yeah,
everywhere, messaging, like ads, movies, toys, everything.
everything. They're
Yeah.
completely bombarded with it. So if they don't know the word of God just as well, if not better, than all of these other messages coming from the world, then yeah, that's where the confusion's going to come, right? But if they do know the word, then
Mm-hmm.
everything else that they hear gets measured up against that word. And if it doesn't sound like the word, they know it's not of God.
Mm.
It's really
Mm-hmm.
quite simple. What is that? Can I just need to go and see if I can find that in the word of God. If it's not here, I'm rejecting that thought.
Yeah.
So I think
Yeah.
God's
It's
made it
powerful.
easy for us. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like I like what you said, the roadmap is already there. And it's, we have the choice to inquire into it. And, that's
Yeah.
just what's so beautiful.
Yeah.
We're going to do a rapid fire segment. So you're going to see fireballs flash across the screen at you, Cara.
Awesome. I'm ready.
5 fast questions. First one thing every parent should teach their child this year.
How to add value. And you can frame that in whatever language your kid will understand, but teaching them how to add value to the family, to their friends, to whatever community is probably one of the best lessons that they'll learn.
Love it. Biggest misconception about purpose?
Probably that it's solely career driven, that it's only about your job or your occupation or whatever. I understand because we spend a lot of energy in that space. But like I said earlier on, it actually touches all areas of your life.
Love it. A warning sign someone is out of alignment.
Again, burnout, right? Everything gets difficult because you're just carrying that misalignment around into all the spaces that you go. So yeah, burning out for sure.
But that transforms family life.
Servanthood. Yeah.
One message you'd give your younger self?
Probably slow down. Don't feel like you have to do everything. And whatever it is that you do choose to do, make sure Jesus is at the center of everything.
Yeah. Amen.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Some practical takeaways for families. What would be the 3 simple steps parents, leaders can take today to move toward aligned, purpose-driven living?
Well, the first thing I would do is reassess your schedule. So take a really honest appraisal of what you are filling your calendar with and strip that thing back from all things that are unnecessary and even all things that are of no eternal value. Just chuck it out. Because the more we have filled in our schedule that really has no eternal value, that stuff only serves to take us away from our time with the Lord. And like we touched on before, it's so important that we're hearing his voice, especially in this day and age. Yeah. Reassess your schedule. And to flow from that, really, the next step would be to make sure, can I see Jesus in the middle of everything that I'm doing? And that even works in your job. I don't care where you work. He can be at the center of it because he's in you and he goes where you go. So make sure Jesus is at the center of everything. And then out of that space, it's so much easier actually to define and articulate what your purpose is. And then live from that place of purpose, not from this place of, I just need to go through life ticking the boxes, right? That box ticking mentality, which is so unfulfilling. Yeah.
Fantastic. No, I appreciate those steps. I'm sure parents and whoever's listening will take a lot out of that. Cara, where can people find you, work with you, or learn more about your services and what you do?
Yeah, the best place to go currently would just be my social media pages, which is the handle for both Facebook, Instagram is at The Purpose Company. You'll find me there. And then next year, the website, which is currently being reconstructed, should be up and running after that. Social media is easier anyway. So yeah, you can just head to those pages.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah. We'll drop a link with the handle as well where we
Awesome.
can, so it's a bit easier for people. But if this episode encouraged you, share it with a parent, educator, or leader who needs this message. Thanks for joining us on the Make School Great Again podcast, Cara. And to everyone else, see you next time.